Hello, species value system. This is about the heartbeat of Allah. This is about the origins of algebra. See, this is obfuscated because they have takes on history where modern nations had the value tactically, criminally re-engineered sciences, even boxing, like with the Queensberry rules. Boxing was revealed by a nature of sciences that revealed by the campus Marcius. English was revealed by a nature of sciences that reveal that and how the 26 sounds of the English language have an identity of relationship to themselves that the rest of the sounds that are of other languages that are not contained within English share. For the same reason, we have different physical color in demonstration of how we are only positive as our nature that is also positive onto ourselves one way or not. In other words, we're either positive or negative quality of diffusion as life, as a gaining nature of volume. Alpha and Omega was revealed to teach this. See, but they couldn't speak directly. They didn't speak directly and indirectly because they knew, modern religions knew that they were going to be handing off the holy books to humanity that came through criminally foreign influence sciences as criminal insidiousness natures, as human fact-cheating nature. I'm not a lawyer, not a peace form, not a criminal. Criminal insidiousness is associated as an effect in relationship to nature that, indifferent to or covering up live progressions tied to the roles with predicate acts, say, or wrongdoers. These are terms associated with criminal enterprises. And that is associated as organized crime. But see, these are natures of organized crime that were legalized since some ancient times, but they're not legal. See, but we have not had free speech of a quality needed to demonstrate this. So we have interbranch actors, raised for a method of child abuse, teach nature of position. That you can't defend that in ourselves at the same time from what exploits this. This is how we have nations individually grouped, whole bunch of nations stick together as once. Shared policing of policing, shared policing of interbranch, which is there and here. Maintain manifest styles of liars, maintain manifest victim predators as live progression cover-up natures, as natures of criminal insidiousness that you could never legalize. Of methods of hiding this already facilitated, needed by those natures and valued, appreciated right there, handed, maintained. They knew they were going to have to keep everyone hiding live progressions offensively. They've been using on off campuses, proven and further child offenders. Untimely deaths brought this up to me. This is also tied to Trade Center crime acts roles as fake sides facilitated, tied to a proven sequence shift from inside the Ninth Circuit Trade Center attack context, which is a court right next to it. They showed from inside the court post-dated documents shown to the panel of judges. That was proven. That led to a 2006 case with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, who was the former standing chairperson on RICO law, Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. These are also people involved criminally with his co-defendants, with a bunch of people. One of them had a daughter in my grade. Another one lived in another town, but they put him in my class. And he lived on the street in Dearborn in Rocky Hill, involved with one of the federal criminals, proven in other case, but now further tied. It was the co-defendant of former director of the FBI in 2006, part of a case /S, which came about with defendant of the FBI, Robert Luskin. English was revealed to teach, algebra is revealed to teach English because the sciences share an identity. So the numbers and the letters they're juxtaposed. This is a way of teaching that doesn't separate math and English law. And that's why the predicate act is value. The predicate act is associated with a crime either facilitated by or influenced by people's relationships to a criminal enterprises. And I guess with live progressions of that, or ahead of it, preemptively or whatever. Now these are organized crime terms. So predicate with English is in demonstration of the same exact thing, distinctly and non-distinctly. Identity nature. This is identity nature's course. There is physical value as nature, and it is simultaneously nature as value, simultaneously distinctly and non-distinctly. There is metaphysical value. See, metaphysics, we have this contained name dropping. The sciences are memorizing facts and names. Oh, this person did this. This is re-engineering of revelations yet brought to the quality of fact, human nature that once was. They have the phenomenon of physical inventions and stuff like that wouldn't even be possible had not what revealed this republic for which we stand. This is an ancient republic that is value with English that was revealed by the nature of internation sciences before they were criminally re-engineered. That means, then they're defending takes on history, formal. They're teaching that you can't defend and at the same time handle correlation nature simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. Excuse me. As we are three natures of volume, inherent, active, and progressive, and they are bonded. And science reveals this. They are bonded also by the semi-nature before and after this. This is the ancients revealed that nature itself is demonstrating what generated planets, what generated matter, what generated exception nature, like water, like electricity. For example, night and day are one identity, like the heart and the lungs are one identity. Their each complete identity is a simultaneously unceasing semi-nature relationship to this perfect value progression. In us as a forever nature. Now, only the extent of it is debatable, and only with lies and physical delusions, not by accident, offensively with passions and emotions, with each age of fact treatment nature in relationship to the same repeated opinions that can be demonstrated, delusions wrought and criminally foreign influenced, education and all tied to that influenced. In other words, we have the same base illogic force. This is about the identity of logic, actually. Psychology has been worse than delusion propagating and valued that way because the nature of how modern nations have types of experts conceived. They conceived modern nations to roles, knowing that if they force types of experts, types of jobs, all trained to rely on other types of experts and divide, the sciences share this identity for a reason. So we come to the heartbeat of Allah. Before matter was bonded, there was one identity of value progression that demonstrably, most scientifically generated matter. And if you don't believe that, then you have to believe that in some kind of God or a thing. And that's what this is. English is about too. Letter G stands for value G. God. As value nature inside values nature. Because that's the extent that each person individually grouped and together what they agree about, what they don't agree about. So there's three natures of value G. This is And discern, as in, what do you have an identity that is perfect, that is a value progression, and it's in discernment of it's perfecting itself using both positive and negative. That is positive onto itself, or negative onto itself, our nature, but per a value nature system that is tactically ulterior from these. See, this is a value system that we are forced all inseparable from. But we have other value nature systems that we're also forced inseparable from. And the semi-ancient organized crime method, this is what the devil's about, demonstrably. This is what modern religions are about countering together demonstrably. There is ancient history, semi-ancient history, semi-ancient modern relations counters to semi-ancient criminal foreign influence, ancient sciences, and the value of that, and also as value as nature. Then there is modern nations, foundings. Our freedom, modern nations, each modern nation didn't have free speech, their founders. Our founders didn't have free speech. Our founders were fact treatment nature slaves. George Washington had to leave overt slavery entrenched in Wethersfield right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. He did not chop down the cherry tree, CT, even though he did. See, this is the nature of facts and truths that is not denying exceptions. That's what, in other words, needs to counter criminal ceaseless nature or organized crime. So there was one identity of value progression. And this is what the beginning of the Old Testament starts off. Matter is already generated, and the voice of God is speaking. Now, God, this is again in relationship, this is A through Z as an equation, bonded as a gaining nature of volume, positive or negative onto itself, and us as forever nature. So before there was matter, there was one identity that concentrated the value of its three semi-natures. But it couldn't be a semi-nature at the same time, so part of its identity stayed back. And that simultaneously, that gained value of the three semi-natures of its nature, inherent, active, and progressive, that transferred that value simultaneously onto the five semi-natures of itself. In other words, these are five semi-natures of invisible but still discernible identity nature bonded to and as the value of this value progression that is inseparable from each. Not only as an identity of value progression, but as an identity of relationship to itself that is valuable as positive or negative. And so this is about the identity of positive, which is in relationship to the Trinity, which is three natures of volume, which is simultaneously five natures of volume, invisible but still discernible. And so that's why the beginning of the Old Testament starts off, God is saying, well, I divided the firmament from this is good. And so he keeps going, he keeps pointing out what is good, pointing out the identity of positive as a value progression. This is before humanity became criminally foreign influence. So then we come to, around the first part of the Old Testament, there was Adam and Eve with the story of the tree. And then there is a list of Cain and Abel, and the list of their generation. They're showing how the humanity was brought into an identity of negative value nature, progression, with the names, because these letters individually, grouped and together, they have an identity of relationship to themselves as value that is inseparable from themselves. These 26 letters the ancients revealed before criminal foreign influence internation sciences. This was internation sciences that originally valued how and why we are in each individual simultaneously a sex dash group and simultaneously a species dash group. The Trinity is manifest all ways, with and as a value/value nature relationship to itself. Within and as the value of what we can perceive and or have conceived in relationship to it. That is going to be positive or negative. Any invention is going to work or not in relationship to this invisible but still discernible identity of value. Any inventions further going to be positive or negative and not in relationship to this invisible but still discernible identity of value. So that Allah concentrated. This is my theory about what the ancients. In other words, this is not just a theory, but is a counter position that is more practical, is more defensible in relationship to how the identity that the sciences share is being exploited. This is exploiting the value of the identity of the ground. That includes water. That is inseparable from us. Discern how the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall, the cell walls they all should come together and they form the body of value. All forms of life have a body of the value discernment system. Those three, the Trinity has a value/value nature relationship to itself. Value nature distinct from values nature, because values nature is its complete nature. So Allah concentrated the value of what was positive and negative to its identity of value progression with its complete identity. In other words, the semi-nature, and then there's a complete nature to it. But that only, that began value progression, because simultaneously when they made that more value, it made the complete identity of Allah gain value, because it was inseparable from itself, what it already was. Identity, nature of value progression as a forever nature. This is before matter. So then the heartbeat of Allah is what the ancients probably most probably called it. In other words, because that identity is overall is inseparable from all parts of itself. That's why all human life has a heartbeat. I mean, all animal life has heartbeat. I don't know if insects have hearts. That's a good question. I have to try to look that up on YouTube. But that would be exception nature. In other words, the rest of nature has no criminal foreign influences. This is about Earth's simultaneously distinct and non-distinct relationship to the rest of nature, which is its. All the planets before they were generated, it was in relationship to an identity of value progression that is most scientifically discernible. And this doesn't deny religions, but people are offensive with faith and with takes on religions that offensively, make debates about debatable. This is debatable, but it is not debatable that something has to be generated before it can bang into each other. For example, regarding the Big Bang Theory, regarding how and why planets are in zero gravity. There is what is soft, there is what is hard, and there is what is resting in zero gravity, as what is gripped as a trinity. So when the complete nature concentrated its value as nature onto and as the value of its own inherent active and progressive nature, two parts of itself wouldn't concentrate, and they gain value simultaneously. In other words, there's value transfer from the three semi-natures to the five semi-natures unceasingly. And that is an unceasing value progression gain of Allah. So that identity, this is for algebra. This is an algebraic term. The Quran and the Old Testament are also working together, knowing, in other words, the Quran is demonstrating that Muslims are supposed to value non-Muslims who are unbelievers, but not as criminal insidiousness natures, using the term wrongdoers. I read about it in English, read in the English Quran, the first part, which it says the first part of the Quran, you only have to read up to a certain part of it. It gives you the right to argue with the standing. The believers are also supposed to not. They're supposed to value the unbelievers who are legitimately trying to care about the value progression system that we are actually a part of, that is actually complete always. It does not leak. It does not, it only gains as a nature of volume. We are a quality of diffusion as forever nature, as temporary / lasting is forever nature. Criminal insidiousness nature is going to have sensibilities as pseudo-positive natures. So when we come to Jane Austen, we come to, we're going to go over these things. We're going to use books, authors, and constant things like this to show another way of looking at history, because history is originally and still maintained value through criminally re-engineered campus Marcius campuses that really revealed boxing, karate. Culture is about this, about our nature, invisible but discernible. Physical culture, every other culture is only valued because of this. Once the bond to matter is gone, it is gone, but this keeps progressing. This keeps gaining its own nature of volume that we are within. Positive or negative to the phenomenon of a little bit more of its complete identity coming into and through and as the value of temporary / lasting space nature. That's why there is evolution. That's why there is the loss of it, length of Hades, which is a forced negative value nature transfer. Because we're not positive what is positive onto its three natures of volume, inherent, active, and progressive. And we're not positive onto its true sequence. Sequence nature brings revelations because it contains the actual value of all the simultaneous natures. Each individual nature is a whole bunch of simultaneous natures of value as its body, as what is positive or negative onto it. There is nothing positive about each of the sciences, identities. They're all recorded delusions wrought, mixed, criminally foreign influenced, and or indifferent, and victim predators not realizing. Quality of fact, treatment nature that can't defend itself and stand free speech with its simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. One way redeems. We have an abridged constitution in our faces. Valued. We have that values that and how other nations are sickly, distinctly, and non-distinctly victims of the same thing, but not by accident, everyone blaming it on other things other than themselves. As natures that have to value how that was only realized. Originally, still everyone forced to blame the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures on other things, others themselves. In cities throughout our nations, I've learned about how cheap they pay the workers